Gospel and homily for the 25th Sunday in Ordinary Time, Year A. The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said to his disciples, "The kingdom of heaven is like a landowner going out at daybreak to hire workers for his vineyard. He made an agreement with the workers for 1 denarius a day and sent them to his vineyard. Going out about the 3rd hour, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace and said to them, 'You go to my vineyard too, and I will give you a fair wage.' So they went. At about the 6th hour and again about the 9th hour, he went out and did the same. Then at about the 11th hour he went out, and he found more men standing round, and he said to them, 'Why have you been standing here idle all day?' 'Because no one has hired us,' they answered. He said to them, 'You go to my vineyard too.' In the evening, the owner of the vineyard said to his bailiff, 'Call the workers and pay them their wages, starting with the last arrivals and ending with the first.' So those who were hired at about the 11th hour came forward and received 1 denarius each. When the first came, they expected to get more, but they too received 1 denarius each. They took it, but they grumbled at the landowner. 'The men who came last,' they said, 'have done only 1 hour, and you have treated them the same as us, though we have done a heavy day's work in all the heat.' He answered one of them and said, 'My friend, I am not being unjust to you. Did we not agree on 1 denarius? Take your earnings and go. I choose to pay the last comer as much as I pay you. Have I no right to do what I like with my own? Why be envious because I am generous?' Thus, the last will be first, and the first last." The Gospel of the Lord. The admired French playwright Jean Anouilh, is one of his plays, he describes a dramatic scene outside the gates of heaven. The faithful are all gathered with their tickets and are waiting impatiently for the pearly gates to open. But on the fringe of the crowd is a small bedraggled group who have no tickets and are ever so grateful to have made it to the gates of heaven at all. A rumour begins to circulate among the ticket holders. "Did you hear he's letting those without tickets into heaven too? Well, I don't believe it. After all, we did." Incredulity gives way to resentment, which in turn boils over into anger. They begin to shout in protest and blaspheme God, and at that very moment they're all damned. Have we ever been tempted to consign to the sin bin all those who have fallen from grace, and never actually taken account of their struggles and the many times they rose again after a fall and turned back to God? How many of us would like to tell God what to do and reserve his mercy for so-called deserving people? We might be tempted to consign the 11th hour people to the back of the queue as far as his mercy is concerned. But today's parable puts the last first. Now, that doesn't at all mean that those at the front of the queue are less favoured or less loved than those who came later in the day. But it's not our job to judge who is worthy or not of God's mercy. The main thrust, actually, of Christ's mission in this world was what he said himself, to seek out and to save that which was lost. Now, if there is joy in heaven over one sinner who repents, as the scripture says, then there should be joy on earth as well. Life is full of surprises, and so also is the gospel. How many so-called undeserving people do we find in the ministry of Jesus who were written off by the self-righteous religious elite of his day? These people in this elite, they were miffed because Jesus gave a fresh start to people who had fallen from grace and were searching for peace of mind and a way back. Examples which spring immediately to my mind are, for instance, number 1, Zacchaeus, the unscrupulous tax collector who turned over a new leaf and felt very humbled when Jesus offered to stay at his house for supper, much to the ire of the onlookers. What about the man crucified with Jesus, who at the 11th hour dared to ask Jesus for a place in his kingdom? Jesus said, "Today you'll be with me in paradise." Mary Magdalene, who had been plagued by demons but felt at home beneath the cross of Jesus, who had forgiven her many sins because she had loved much. What about the woman of Samaria, whose life was in a mess, but was turned round after meeting Jesus at the well of Sychar? And last but not least, the prodigal son, who left his reckless way of life behind and was really overcome with the welcome he received from his father, much to the ire of his elder brother. It is people like the elder brother that the gospel today is really addressed. Because he, the elder brother, he couldn't share his father's joy or join the homecoming party for his younger sibling. The gospel today is chiefly addressed to people of that ilk. So, we rejoice with those who have turned back to God, whether it be at the 6th, the 9th, or even the 11th hour. God is unstinting with his mercy if we give him half a chance to dispense it. Today's parable assures us of that. Thank you all now very much for listening, and God bless you all.